Welcome to Art Ed Radio, the podcast for art teachers. This show is produced by the Art of Education University, and I'm your host, Tim Bogatz. Have you seen the documentary Made You Look on Netflix? It is an absolutely fascinating documentary about the biggest art fraud in American history. And that's what we're going to talk about today. The documentary, a lot about it, of course, but also a little bit about how we can use stories like this to hook and engage our students. And before we dive in, I want to give you a quick synopsis of the film. Now, I think the shortest way I can put this is that in New York in the 1990s and 2000s, there's just a trove of undiscovered paintings from abstract expressionists. They came from a woman named Glafira Rosales, who sold them to an art dealer named Anne Friedman. Anne Friedman then sold them to collectors from around the world, making millions for herself and her art gallery, the Knoedler Gallery. One problem, though. All of the paintings were actually fake. They came from an art forger named Pei Shen Quan, who was actually a math professor in Queens. And as we move through the documentary, we learn how this web of lies and forgeries kind of unravels. You know, we find out that Glafira and her boyfriend, just a complete grifter, named Jose Carlos Bergantinos Diaz, were behind most of the scheming. Pei Shen Qian, the forger, played a relatively minor role, I think we can say. And Anne Friedman, we really don't know with her. You know, she is the main character in the documentary, and she is also an enigma. You know, everyone I've talked to has different thoughts on her and how complicit she might be in the whole scheme. I will recommend that you watch and decide for yourself. And actually, now is a great time. Like, if you haven't seen the documentary, go watch it. Like, pause the podcast. We'll still be here when you come back. And go search Made You Look on Netflix. It is well worth the 90 minutes that it takes to watch it. And those of you that have seen it, or if you just think that my 60-second description was enough, stick around as I bring on Abby Schukei and Amanda Heyn, and we'll dive into Made You Look. All right, I have two guests with me. Abby Schukei, how are you?
I am very good. I'm very excited to be here to talk about this topic. I have a lot to say.
I think this is going to be quite the discussion. I'm also excited. And secondly, Amanda Heyn, how are you?
I am also very good and very excited to talk about this topic. And I also have a lot to say.
I feel like we're very fired up about this documentary. So I think it's going to be good. I give everybody the overview of the documentary in the intro. And so we're just going to assume we know that story. I encourage everybody to pause the podcast, go watch it, and then come back and listen. So we'll just kind of dive right in. Abby, I will ask you first. Do you remember seeing this story originally, like when arrests were made, when the trial was happening, or was this documentary like your first introduction to the story?
Okay, so I definitely don't remember seeing anything or reading anything about on the news or anything like that.
You were like 4.
Yeah. I was 4 in 2019. The trial started, or I don't know when it started, but no, I did not hear. I totally missed that in the world of the news, apparently. But my first introduction to it was not through the documentary. It was actually through a book called The Art of the Con. By Anthony Amore, who is the chief of security at the chief of security and investigation or something at the Isabella Stewart Gardner Museum.
Home of another, maybe the most famous heist of American art ever.
Yes. So that's super interesting because he started like working there in 2005. Anyway, he wrote these books. One's called Stealing Rembrandt, and then The Art of the Con, which is just basically about all of these art, like fakes, frauds, forgery stories that like we don't necessarily hear about. Like they're not like the Gardner Museum theft,
right,
you know, which ironically that happened 31 years ago today, like as we're speaking right now. So interesting that this is all just coming together like that. So anyway, no, this book, The Art of the Con, was written in 2015. And so I've owned it since then. I don't think I read it until like 2018 though. So it was before it's happening. So I definitely in the book though, like the part of the trials and stuff, that's not in there because it doesn't exist yet. But yeah, that's how I first knew about it.
Okay. I'm going to come borrow that book, by the way. Amanda, what about you? Like, was this doc the introduction for you?
Yes, it was. But I have to say, side note, if you like this topic, you should all go listen to Last Scene, which is a podcast all about the Gardner heist.
Great podcast.
Really good. Yes, it was. My husband always makes fun of me because you open up my Netflix and it's like weird foreign documentaries, like is like all that it wants to suggest to me. So like, of course, this popped up right away as a 99% match. And I loved the title, like made you look. It's just such a good title. Such a good title for a documentary. So yeah, I watched it the day that I saw it on my Netflix, and I am super excited to talk about it. And I'm puzzled why I didn't hear about it before, because I feel like that stuff usually comes across in the things I read. But anyway, I was excited to learn about it now.
Yeah.
What about you, Tim? Did you know about it?
I knew about the story, did not know about the documentary until you told me about it, Amanda. And I believe you just typed it to me, like we were just messaging about it. And I let out an audible gasp. Like, there's a documentary about this. Like, I need to see it. So I immediately watched it and decided we needed to record a podcast. So it did answer one of my, lingering questions about the whole thing. Was just seeing I always wondered how they were able to fool people into thinking like this is an actual Rothko, this is a Pollock. And then they show those paintings in the doc and I'm like, yeah, I'm fooled. They really, really look realistic.
No, they fooled the experts too. So
I know. And so I guess that kind of leads into my next question for both of you. The forgery, the selling of the work, the backstory, that all seemed like a pretty elaborate con. So a couple questions. Amanda, I'll ask you first. Did you think the artwork was believable? Like visually, could you be convinced that painting was a Rothko or a Pollock or a Motherwell? And then secondly, do you think the story of where the artwork came from, the provenance, as they called it, did you think that was believable?
Okay, well, I might get into a critique of this documentary in my answer, but first of all, I mean, were they, I want to say no, of course they weren't believable because I'm an art teacher and I know a lot about art history, but of course they were believable. Yes, I've seen those works of those artists in person, right, at a museum, but I'm not I don't know what kind of pigment they used. I have a general idea of what a Rothko looks like. I don't have his whole catalog memorized. Yes, I think to anybody looking at that painting, who didn't have a super in-depth background, I think they would be believable. So, and also then we later learned that they were made by a literal master painter.
Yes.
And so the person creating them also had the skill to mimic them. So yes, I think they were believable. The story, no. I mean, well, I want to say no, but this is where I wish they would have gone into a little bit more detail. In this high art world, I wanted to know more about that. I guess you could tell me that it was believable, or I might believe it if you told me that there were often super rich people who wanted to stay anonymous when they sold their art, right? Maybe that happens. I don't know. Yeah. And I wish that they told us a little bit more about that. But the fact that there was literally no trace of it, and it was so ambiguous.
Well, it's just he bought them from the studio in New York, then they ended up in Mexico, and now they're back.
giant red flag, like the biggest red flag. Yeah.
Yeah. So Abby, what about you? Thoughts on the painting or thoughts on the story behind the paintings?
Well, I thought the part was hilarious when they were talking about, you have all all of these art experts in the courtroom during the trial, and
Yes.
they have one of these fake Rothkos, and they know that it's fake, and they had it there, and they're
Yes.
all like, "Do you think it goes this direction or this direction?" Like, what is? And we're like, we're all sitting there, like we know it's a fake, but we're like, if this were a Rothko, like which direction, which is top, which is bottom? So like that, I mean, that was kind of funny, but yeah, I don't know, the elaborate story, Mr. X, all
Yeah, like
all
Mr. X, like that's the name like that is out of a bad spy novel. Like what?
yeah, I don't, yeah, but I mean, like maybe if I didn't know it was going to be this sense of fraud, maybe I would believe it, but not those people in that position. Like no way should you have believed that. But like I said, I guess we're not we don't curate art. We're not selling them. So yeah, I don't know. There are some
Tim,
things that I don't understand.
Yeah.
yeah. I want to say that Tim thinks that he would be able to tell that they were fake.
I think
No,
No?
they fooled me. Like as soon as they put visuals on the studio, like I was like, oh, okay, I see. Like I was like, there's no way I would be able to tell that apart. Like if you put up real Rothko versus fake Rothko, no clue. Right. I'm a huge Rothko fan, but I could not have told you that, yeah, whether that was or not. So no, I would have been 100% fooled. Okay, so I also want to talk though about some of the main characters. I feel like there are 4 main characters, but let's chat about Bergantinos and Pei Shen Qian. I don't know if I'm saying that exactly right, but it seems like they both, for lack of a better phrase, got away with it. Like Bergantinos ended up in, he's the shady grifter dude. He just ended up in Spain. And our master painter ended up in China, and they both just kind of seem to be living their life. So like what, Amanda, what did you think about seeing them and where they are right now?
I think it was really funny when like Bergantinos was in like doing an interview and he was like about to answer his question and his lawyer is off screen and is like, no, like don't say anything. Like it's obvious he's wrapped up in this. It's obvious that he played a huge part and did a bad thing. And like, I don't know, it seems like a super sweet deal for him. It just seems like seems like he has literally no consequences. And again, like I wish they would have gone into a little bit more detail about why. Like because he wasn't going to be extradited back or whatever, like okay, but like why? And like why wasn't he in trouble with anybody anywhere? Why couldn't he be in trouble? Like that, and that's probably just like me not knowing how laws work fully, but it seems unfair to me.
Right. Like it's like the epitome of white collar crime. His entire punishment is, sorry, you have to live in this mansion in Spain the rest of your days. Like his only consequence is he can't travel back to the United States. Like,
right. But exactly.
That's why you should read the book, because there's like more of those details in it.
Ooh.
Okay.
Like I kind of felt that the documentary was a little bit slow in the regards of like, I know Amanda, we are going to critique the documentary a little bit, like because the story was, I mean, it didn't take me 90 minutes to read the story about it.
Right.
But I did really appreciate the suspenseful score and music in it.
Yeah.
That made me excited. Yeah. But there was just like a lot of pausing behind it. Like when Anne Friedman was talking, it's like we're just going to stare at her for a little bit longer. But there are some more details within the book there that kind of like build those characters a little bit more about who they are, which
right, because it's like how much did the painter know? Like how much did he know that they were being sold for this much money? It seems like not. It seems like he was still living in a regular house and everyone else was making $10 million. Like
like, is that just his excuse though? Like, like, did he actually squirrel away a whole bunch of money? And then, when the police came, he just throws up his hands and like, I had no idea this was happening.
So this is my theory. So with Pei-Shan,
yes,
he, so, his story, like he came to New York first he went to art school, did the schooling in like the 80s, then went back to Shanghai, was like a really good, like was renowned in the world of
Yes, that's right.
They credit him for bringing back modern Chinese art. They had this huge exhibit that he was a part of. And so then he came back to New York. He's like, okay, like I had, he kind of had this clout or whatever, and brought it back to New York City, where he's like, okay, I'm going to make it as an artist again. But then turns out that was a lot harder for him. Started peddling paintings on the street, just as like a, selling street paintings. And that's how he got discovered. So I think it started out of like a need of like, oh, these people are going to like pay me to do something. Like, sure.
Yeah.
But then they talk about, so I think that maybe at first he didn't know.
But then he had to, like, remember, like, the nails labeled as, go nails. Like, okay, you're obviously trying to copy something.
Yeah, there's no way, like, when he was doing this in the late 90s or in the 90s, like, there's no way, like, just because you're from China, I don't think that if you're living in America during that time, like, would you really not know who Jackson Pollock is? Would you really not know who Mark Rothko is? Like, because he claimed, like, he didn't know who these artists were, but like he was able to like just copy them. So I don't think he necessarily like knew what he was in for at the beginning, but I don't think he was making very much money at the beginning until, you saw it and you're like, wait, you're selling that for $10,000 and you're giving me like a couple hundred. Right. And so I think that was kind of the turning point where it was like, okay, I've been doing this for a while. I've already been into it. Like, where's my cut?
Right.
So. Yeah. All right. So those two guys seem to kind of get away with it just from playing dumb or, denying any culpability. And somehow Glafira like took the fall for everybody. And I'm not saying she's innocent, because she's obviously not, but it seems unfortunate that the hammer came down on her and not on anybody else. So, Abby, what did you think about that?
Yeah, I agree with that. Just because it's like, come on. Yeah, she was definitely a mastermind in all of this and all of her people, but she wasn't working alone. And then just like, it kind of like the documentary did a good job of like, you hated her. They painted her as a, like, as a bad person at the beginning, but then like you did kind of feel bad for her at the end. And then it's like, okay, of where everybody else is at now, where it's living a normal life. Like she lost the most and like was the only one who lost everything. Like, she didn't serve that much jail time, but like still she doesn't have, all of her money.
She's working as a waitress now and she was formerly a millionaire. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, and Anne Friedman has her own gallery now. So
wow, we will talk about Anne Friedman. Amanda, do you have anything to say about Glafira before we move on to Anne?
Well, I kind of wonder too, like, we didn't really hear about like her motive for it. And so I'm wondering, like, was there an underlying of like coercion from Bernardino's, or like, was she being threatened, or was she like, I don't know, like maybe not, maybe she's just a bad person, but like maybe she was also in a really bad situation, or maybe it was kind of a combination. Like I wish they had dug into that story a little bit more, because like, sure, everybody wants money, but like, what is the driving motivation behind this enormous con?
Yeah, I think for me, that's kind of the big hole in the doc is like they obviously couldn't get an interview with her. And so we don't hear her part of the story at all. And I really wish we knew more about that. So.
Well, and I also, it leads you to believe like, okay, is this the first one that happened with these artists? Like, did this group of people do more? Because like, obviously they weren't good at it until they got caught.
Right.
So, I don't know.
Yeah, it makes you look with suspicion anytime they're like, new painting by X artist discovered. You're like, oh, it's on shaky ground. Like, should we believe this or not? So,
Yeah.
I don't know. Okay, we need to talk about Anne Friedman, though. I have a lot to say. So, do
You go
either of you?
first.
Yeah,
You want me to go?
Yeah.
Okay, might
Start us
take me a
off.
little bit. So, I don't know. Like, Anne came across in the documentary to me as just so incredibly guilty. Like, she denied all of her involvement. She didn't seem to get punished for this. But yet I am 100% convinced she knew 100% of what was going on. Like, the entire time she talks like a lawyer has coached her the entire time, and never is there, any like mea culpa, no, like, oh, I'm sorry this happened. It's always excuses. Like, it reminds me of like a kid in your class who has gotten in trouble. Like, hey, Cody, you've punched that kid 14 straight days. And Cody never says he's sorry. He's always like, well, Spencer was punching kids too. And did you see Addie? Because she kicked that kid. And also Mrs. Snow lets us punch people in her class. Like, always excuses. Like, there's never like an I'm sorry. Never, any responsibility. And it frustrated the heck out of me, because she just had an excuse for everything. Like, well, I talked to this guy about it. I got a letter from this appraiser about this, and just never, ever, ever like, oh yeah, after selling 14 of those, after selling 26 of those, like, that are all forgeries, I'm just going to keep accepting paintings from these people. And it blows my mind. And I know people are like, oh, she's innocent until proven guilty. And then we actually get to the trial and she's about to be found guilty. And guess what? She just up and leaves. It's like, oh, I need to settle, actually. Like, she just doesn't show up to court for 2 days and then settles out of court. And it just blows my mind. As you can tell, I'm very frustrated. And I'll just say this, like, the only excuse she can have for that is either A, I'm really bad at my job, or B, I'm too dumb to do my job. And yet, what is her job? She is still selling art. And I just, like, I don't know how anyone could work with her at this point. And so anyway, I'm not a fan of Anne Friedman. Well, will just be what I have to say.
She's a little shady. Yeah, to be like obviously she probably was once really she must be great at her job as far as knowing something. But there's a funny thing about her. So when in the documentary, just a little bit, they talked about like having the Rothko experts come in and like, make sure that they're authentic and things. So they didn't mention this in the documentary, I don't think. So one weird thing about in the initial investigation is that Anne Friedman talks about, she's like, well, I even bought a Jackson Pollock painting, that one of these forged ones, but turns out Pollock was misspelled. It was missing when it was one of the forgeries. Okay. It was one of the forgeries. And, she was like, I didn't notice it. I didn't notice it until like after the fact. And I was like, excuse me, what?
Okay, I have a little bit different take. I feel like she started off not knowing. I think she wanted so badly to believe it because that would skyrocket her into this new realm of her position and her title and her provenance and her, like whatever. And I think she got stuck in like the sunk cost fallacy, right, of economics, where you just like keep investing time in something, even though it's like a terrible idea, and like you can't not do it anymore, even though it's a worse and worse and worse idea. Like, I think she got so far deep into it that she like couldn't pull herself out and became terrible at her job and willing to overlook anything, including like misspellings and like huge glaring red flags. It doesn't mean she was still terrible at her job in my mind, and I would never buy a painting from her ever. But I don't know. I'm not convinced that she was like a criminal mastermind. I think she got in over her head and then became blind to anything because she needed so badly to believe it that she just let it go on for so long. That's my take.
But why is there no remorse? Why is there no responsibility then?
I
Like
mean,
she's not a good person.
no, I didn't say she was a good person. I just like, yeah, like something's clearly off there, like her demeanor and whatever. But like, I don't. I think she's like, maybe she's like mad at herself that she let herself do that, or like she can't like. I don't know. If she admits she was wrong, she admits she was so dumb. So like she doesn't want to admit, like she wants to think that everything lined up and anybody would have believed it, even though if there was anyone who shouldn't have believed it, it would have been her in her position.
But it was also really wild when they did the breakdown of the numbers as far as like,
yeah,
okay,
how much it
sells. This is what the painting sells for. And then this is what the gallery gets. And then her commission fee was like $10 million.
It's true.
I was like, I'm in the wrong business.
Oh man, I just can't imagine just living a life of lies like that for so long. It's
right. Like, wouldn't it eat
much.
you alive? That's why I think she believed it. Like, how do you live with that for like 20 years, knowing at any moment? But I think deep down she did know, and that's why she was scared, and that's why she kept believing.
Or maybe she didn't know at first. Maybe she didn't know at first, but then there was a point that she did know, and then, yeah, what do you do? How do you go back from there?
Yeah,
obviously you just can. You just settle out of court and then open a new gallery.
That what was the people, the Desoles?
Oh,
the only time I forget about her. The only time I think about her is when I see her drinking coffee in Brooklyn.
Like, yeah, I also they were but I also was not a real big fan of that duo.
No, I didn't believe them. I didn't feel bad for them. So that's a whole different topic. But
yeah, we don't have time to get into them. But like, for the record, not a fan.
All right. So I want to wrap this up real quickly and then talk just a little bit about maybe how these ideas can move into our classroom. So just to wrap this up, just maybe one or two sentences about the doc overall. Like, what did you think of it? Would you recommend it? Was there anything that you really thought was missing? I'm sorry to put you on the spot here, Abby. I'll send it to you first. What's your quick overview of the doc?
If you don't know the story, it's definitely worth the watch. It's intriguing. There's some, because they are painters that, you know, we all use in our classrooms as art teachers, you know, Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko, you know, those are the main focuses there. We all have that kind of basic knowledge of those artists. So it's interesting to see that a little bit in this perspective. And especially like we talked about at the beginning, I know this is more than two sentences. I'm long-winded. But just like we think about like, you know, art crime and things like stolen art. The Mona Lisa got stolen again. And like this stuff is happening all the time that we don't know about, especially in this modern age of technology and everything too. So it's a different story for us that, is definitely good for anybody who's interested in art.
Yeah. All right, Amanda.
Okay. My two sentences are, it was good. You should watch it. No, but really, I mean, like for me, like, so my husband watched it with me and he is not an art person. He's a software engineer. And like, we had such an interesting discussion afterward. Like, what is art? What makes art good? If no one had ever found out that these were fake, everyone would be so happy to have like a Rothko in their house or a Pollock in their house. So like, what makes Pollock better than the guy who copied him? If the guy who copied him made a passable fake, like, is one of them a better artist than the other? Like, is it really more about the ideas than whatever? Like, we just had a really interesting discussion. So I think it's definitely worth a watch.
Yeah, I would say it's 90 minutes well spent. And there's so much more I want to dive into. I want to read that book that Abby recommended. I want to read a bunch about the trials. And I want to just even spend some time thinking about like those questions that you brought up, Amanda. And also just the differences between like what is appreciated in China versus what is appreciated in America in terms of originality and skill and just all of, where is your expertise? And I think that's fascinating to me and worth thinking about. So, okay. So we're talking to art teachers here. So we do need to bring this back to the classroom. So, Abby, I'm going to send it to you first to like, how would you use something like this in your classroom? I know you wrote that article about art forgeries, but can you talk about how, you use some of those ideas in the article or how you would use this documentary, with your students?
Yeah, well, I'm a storyteller when I'm with my students, and I love just, there's so many things in history that occur that happen to be related to art that sometimes people don't realize. So anytime you can kind of bring those in, like I know for my 8th grade students, one of the things that's in the curriculum is they talk about the Holocaust. And it's like when they come in and I know they're talking about it, I'm always waiting for it. I'm like, how do you talk about the Nazis and you don't talk about art at all or any of that? So like finding those opportunities to kind of bring some of that in because even in this book too, there's some different stories about the Nazis and art that and fraud with some of those stories that we don't know that goes a little bit more beyond than just like the monuments men that people kind of know about. But yeah, just any like I know it's not like we don't want to encourage our students to be like, yeah, you should forge art. Like look into like that's not good. But like those are going to be the hooks and the intriguing stories that gets our students, interested or like might even remember something. So like one kind of fun artist. There's so many fun stories. There was this artist, Wolfgang Peltracci. That's maybe how you say it. He was a German artist, I think. Well, German forger. So he would forge a bunch of artwork that was not listed in catalogs, or they'd be marked as like missing, so nobody knew what they looked
so like. He would make them.
And so like one of the artists that he would like in person. So like Max Ernst. So he would just go through and like he made up all of these paintings. So they technically were like they weren't copies. Like he was inventing his own in the styles of all of these different artists, but they passed him off as his own. Obviously, he would sell these for millions of dollars. And I mean, he did go to prison, not for very long though, but then turns out he's like a successful artist now for his own artwork because like he made a name for himself by forging this stuff. And then and now it's like, oh, okay. So it turned out well for him. But the things about his stories were like they would go. So talking about the backstory of where these paintings would come from, he would go in. His family was in on the con. They would fake these old sepia tinted photos to make them look old fashioned, and they'd be like, "Oh, these paintings have been part of our family history for so long. Look, here's my grandmother in this old photo." And they'd have like the painting in the background
on
the wall, but it was really just his wife dressed up.
Wow.
It was like,
so well, like, at least they made an attempt to fake the provenance as well as the art.
Oh,
I mean, that's a step above this other con. Yes, and
it turned out well for Wolfgang, but because now you could buy. He makes a living out of being an artist, even after having all of his lawsuits and jail time and everything. So those are the stories that are so fun to bring in with your students because it's just, you get to talk about art history, art appreciation, and just, it makes for good conversation. And that's kind of what we're there for in the classroom, to make those connections to hopefully have students create that appreciation for art.
Yeah, for sure. Amanda, do you have anything to add?
I mean, I think this could provide some really cool writing prompts, especially for older kids. Like, why is art so expensive? Do you think it's easier to forge like an abstract expressionist painting or like a Renaissance painting, right? Like, what would you do if you were in any of these people's positions? Like, I think it just gives so much insight into the art world for students. Like, we're used to sort of addressing and talking about the formal properties of a painting or, like the artistic merit of something. But like this goes deeper into like the business side of art, which I think is really interesting, and something that kids don't usually have access to. And so I think this is like a cool in point for them. And I also think it could be a super fun jumping off point for a project where they literally have to be inspired by and copy an artist's work to learn a technique, like as a way to do that. I think that could be super cool as well.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of great ideas there. But we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. So Abby and Amanda, thank you both so much. This was a lot of fun. And next time we have a good art documentary, I'll have you back and we can discuss again.
Excellent. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you to Abby and to Amanda for those incredible ideas on how you can bring a lot of these stories, the storytelling, and just the history of art fraud into your art room. And thanks for the entire conversation. We will make sure we link in the show notes to the book that Abby mentioned, to the podcast that Amanda talked about, to Abby's article all about dealing with art fraud and forgeries and how you can bring that into your classroom, because I think there's a lot to explore, and I hope you do that. So I would love to hear your thoughts on Anne Friedman or anybody else, so feel free to email me. I love chatting about these docs and, everything that I've seen, and I love telling stories about the art world. So if you have a take or an opinion, feel free to send that to me, Timothy Bogatz at theartofeducation.edu. Otherwise, I hope you enjoyed the conversation, and we will talk to you next week. Art Ed Radio is produced by the Art of Education University with audio engineering by Michael Crocker. Thank you, as always, for listening.